Hello and welcome to the slightly delayed episode of the AV Club this week. The delay coming by virtue of the fact that I came home last night and there was no electricity, such as the storm and the ways of trying to record things in December on an Atlantic island. But it doesn't matter because we are here with Craig Rigdon. Ben, unfortunately, was available last night, but he's away working now for this afternoon AV Club hit, which makes it a little bit more fresher by the time you actually hear it in your ears. What we're talking about is definitely going to be as current as we can possibly make it. So, Craig, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Looking forward to getting into some of the talking points because there's some interesting stuff today.
Yeah, some really interesting stuff. It's funny, like I was I was scrolling through the old tweet machine this morning, and I saw somebody making obviously a few interesting points around the whole Philip Rivers thing, which we'll talk about later on today. But I think let me try to get the exact way in which they put it. Philip Rivers is back. The Patriots have 11 wins. The Cowboys are average. Joe Flacco is slinging it. There's drama in Philly. Matt Stafford is a stud. The Seahawks defense is nasty. Aaron Rodgers is in the 4 seed, and the Browns and Raiders are eliminated. Your childhood isn't over yet. It feels like so much just that we thought we moved away from in the league. It hasn't moved away from. And Philip Rivers being one of those crazy, crazy stories. And that's something we'll talk about briefly, not briefly, I think in depth after this. But first, a reminder that the AV Club comes to you in association with the TapHouse Bar and Grill in Ranelagh. Uh, Make sure you go there to watch RedZone for 6 o'clock every Sunday, and of course, have a few watch parties as well. I don't know if anybody saw the thing on the internet, by the way. Tom McCormick, who, as many of us know, is involved in Steelers Ireland, was there doing push-ups in the bar. I can't remember exactly what it was they're raising money for, but I was like looking at Tom McCormick, who is a man like considerably older than myself, but he's doing. I hate doing push-ups. I can't fucking stand push-ups. I can't even stand doing fake push-ups. And he's there doing it in a Steelers jersey, the pumping. I was like, go on, Tom. There you go. He's got it. So nice bit of dedication there. But it's the other team in Pennsylvania we have to talk about, Craig, because the Eagles have now lost the last 3 games they've played, losing a bizarre one against the Chargers here. We'll get to the play of the night in a second
Mhm.
when Jalen Hurts managed to get the distinction of being probably the first player ever to turn the ball over twice in one night. But there's a lot of really sloppy things going on here, where the Chargers ended up coming out with a victory. Let's start with the Eagles first. I think that is as much as we always tend to talk about losers more than winners in this league. The Eagles is the bigger storyline here, and people were saying going into maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago that the Eagles are this year's Chiefs, and that even if they don't necessarily play the best, they find ways to win games. And that's just not how it's working out now. Missed field goals, interceptions, turnovers. They allowed the Chargers to come in, and in the last play of the game, they threw a pick instead of a touchdown with the chance there to go and win it. There's a clutch gene that's missing in Kansas City, and I feel like there's a clutch gene that's starting to go loose in Philadelphia as well.
Yeah, really strange that you've got the two teams that played in the Super Bowl last year really starting to struggle. Obviously, the Eagles, maybe not as much as the Chiefs, just because of the fact that they were able to string some wins together before they started to have a mini collapse. And a little pat on the back to myself and Ben for calling them out on Fraud Watch a couple of weeks ago and actually getting something right for once, as
For
opposed to.
in fairness, he is you did, and I've been proven wrong on my Broncos pick. So yeah, no, you're totally right.
But yeah, you look at that Eagles team and something is inherently wrong. You speak about Jake Elliott, who's normally Mr. Automatic, missing a field goal. He has, I wouldn't say struggled this year, but he's struggled when you compare it to his own excellence that he's shown throughout time. And we're talking about a kicker who consistently, as I know very well as a Giants fan, is able to kick from 60 plus yards and just make those kicks. And he's now missing kicks within the 40 to 50 range, not regularly, but enough that it becomes a little bit of a worry where you would expect him to be that automatic kicker. And special teams is not something the Eagles have had to worry about for a very long time. So to have that as a little wrinkle doesn't help. Their offense is still stuttering. You've got the 52-yard touchdown by Saquon Barkley off the fake tush push sneak, which now they're obviously trying to show, oh, we're not just going to run the tush push all the time and actually do it. We can be spicy if we want to be. And it's a good 52-yard touchdown run straight off the Mark Andrews playbook, obviously from a few weeks ago for the Ravens. But a lot of their offensive stuff is fleeting. They have they land body blows against the Chargers, but they seem to land it when they were in a hurry up offense. It didn't when they were meticulous and kind of overthinking things a little bit, it seems to stifle them. They almost need to constantly be on the go, and whether that's because that it then forces their offensive coordinator just to make those snappier decisions that maybe it shows that he's second guessing his own team. I don't know. Defensively, they're keeping them in games. Outside of that, the Bears and the Cowboys' losses, they've actually been a very, very good defense. They've generally stifled teams to low point outputs. They didn't allow anything more than 3 points after that 80-yard touchdown drive to open the game for the Chargers. They kept forcing field goals. They kept forcing punts. 7 sacks by 5 different players. The defense is cooking. The offense and special teams just feels like a dropped lasagna on the floor at the moment.
Very much. I think it's a great point you make about the defense. I mean, there's a couple of times where every time the Chargers tried to go for something deep, Cooper DeJean is there batting it away. It felt like Herbert was under a lot of pressure. There was one interception, and look, the Chargers give up a lot of interception and turnovers as well. Let's not let that be lost in the storyline of this game. There was one where they managed to sort of clock his arm as he's making the throw. Herbert had to operate under a lot of pressure. Now, I thought he did so relatively well and that he was accurate, if not explosive. So the Eagles' defense is not the problem. We're definitely not hitting the panic button there. But, I mean, in terms of the confidence that your offense hits, let's just play a little bit of commentary I have of the interception heard around the world that ended up being another interception. This is Kevin Harlan on the radio commentary explaining it for anybody who didn't catch the highlights.
In the shotgun formation, Hurts looks over the defense, shotgun snap, 5-man rush, blitzes on pass. It's intercepted up the middle at the 20. Coming to the near side, 25. Then the players hit. The ball's yard free. Hurts picked it up. He loses the ball. The ball's rolling near sideline. Recovered at the 45. It looks like as they try to untangle the bodies, the Chargers have gotten the ball. Stopping the drive by Philadelphia.
I love Kevin Harlan so much. He's such a fantastic commentator. He just illuminates everything. I think it's why he's brilliant on the radio comments. But I think watching that, it's almost like there's another sloppy play. Like the stat sheet will read that Jalen Hurts gave away 4 interceptions. There was a play early in the first half where he really could have given away another one, but it ended up being the interceptor from the Chargers. The ball can hit off the ground. There was one interception I wouldn't put at Jalen Hurts' door. Was clearly AJ Brown. The pass is a little high. But AJ Brown, if you're going to keep whinging with the ball not going his direction, if a ball is coming maybe a few inches above your head, you go and catch that. He let it slip through his fingers, and it goes into the defender's fingers. I think I'm right in saying there was a part in the second quarter where over the course of 11 plays, there was 5 turnovers between the teams. And that's not including the fact that there were 3 turnovers in one play. That one I just played there. Hurts gives the ball over to the Chargers. Chargers lose it. Hurts has it again. He fumbles it. And Chargers end up falling on top of it. It's like a sloppy game of rugby. And it just seems like it's very not – it's difficult when the execution levels aren't there. And like this is a game where Saquon Barkley managed to get over 100 yards, which he hasn't been able to do a lot this year. Like you say, he had that touchdown, but he was a bit more efficient outside of that as well. I don't want to start sort of going on hot takes about Hurts because, the more we've dumping the Eagles now, the more likely it is that they're going to end up playing in the NFC Championship game. That's just the way that things have been in Philadelphia. But it just seems this seems even sloppier than sloppy periods they've had in the last couple of years when they've had these mid-season dips before getting it together for the wintertime.
Almost feels like Jalen Hurts is starting to try and put the team on his back, a la an Allen, and he just doesn't have the intangibles really to do it by himself. He has been very good. He's been efficient, but he's had the supporting cast. Now the supporting cast is starting to fail him slightly. It does feel like Jalen Hurts is one of the cleanest quarterbacks out there who never gives up an interception, is now being proven to be a player who actually has done quite well in the system. And now that is his hands being forced, the mistakes are starting to come in. Now, I didn't check the stats before this, but I would be quietly confident to say that the 4 interceptions that he had last night were as many as he's had throughout the entire season. It's got to be close because I know he's been very, very protective of the ball throughout the season. So I just feel like the mistakes are starting to kick in because the pressure's starting to ramp up. And although that pressure was there last year, they had the kind of leadership there to kind of set everyone down and say, look, this needs to stop now. And it obviously worked. For whatever reason, that hasn't happened this year. And it feels like they're slowly coming off the tracks. And the only thing that really helps the Eagles in a way is the fact that they're in a division that's struggling at the moment. Obviously, the Cowboys can still catch them, but they're coming off the back of a bit of a disappointing game against the Lions. The Giants and the Commanders are nowhere to be seen, so there's no issue there. But in a stronger division, the Eagles would probably suffer, and it could be the one thing that hurts them when it goes into the playoffs is the fact that they're going to come up against these teams who are going to be able to punish them for the mistakes, despite how good their defense are playing.
Yeah, the NFC is especially strong. I mean, you don't want to face against the Rams or the Seahawks or probably the 49ers or the Bears or the Packers or the Lions when they're just these levels of inefficiency. You do make a very good point about Jalen Hurts' touchdown interception ratio. His TD to interception ratio for the year so far is 19-6, and 5 of those 6 interceptions have come in the last 2 games. So until the one he threw against the Bears and the 4 he threw last night, he has been very, very protective and clean with the ball. So I think that is worth saying in terms of the large overview. But I mean, we have to overreact whenever the Eagles go 0-3 because that's what everybody in Philadelphia does. I hope that it's only eggs being thrown at Kevin Patullo's house this week. Before we put a pin in that game, though, let's talk about the Chargers here, because there's a couple of teams who just over the course of the season play good football, but have slipped under my radar personally slightly, and that's the Chargers, because the AFC West talking points have always been about the Broncos, going for it and still managing to eke out these close wins, or when are the Chiefs going to finally spark to life? And they haven't sparked to life. The Chargers sitting here, like they're 9-4. We know they have problems with their offensive line, but Herbert is still looking relatively clean. He wasn't fantastic, like 12 of 26, 139 yards, a touchdown and an interception. The rushing game never really got going either, but they're winning games. Their defense, I think, is showing up. They're learning to sort of apply pressure at the right times. It's unusual when you look at the fact that they're only 2 weeks removed from dropping one 35-6 to the Jags. They struggled against the Titans a few weeks ago. They lost one to the Colts, so the AFC South obviously seems a bit of a bogey side for them. But yet we're coming into a run here where they go to Arrowhead Stadium and then go to Dallas, and you wouldn't be surprised if they go and win both of those games. There's something in the rhythm of what's happening in that Chargers organization, which is difficult to quantify in terms of actual talent, but in terms of situational football, which is what Harbaugh is so good at. They seem to be getting that knack for that.
No, I think a lot of it comes down to that defense under Jesse Minter. I think he's really put together a very well balanced defense of veterans and younger players. You look at that sort of defensive front that they've got, and it is very stacked with players who are household names like Khalil Mack, who is who's there and is able to kind of solidify that. And then in the back of that, they have a lot of youngsters, and you look at someone like Cam Hart last night, who played absolutely phenomenally and was part of the reason that they won the game with the sort of little hand, I guess, in before the interception there. But he's been playing amazing, and they've just seemed to have got the balance right there. Their offense is struggling, but the defense is kind of keeping it together. They haven't scored more than 30 points offensively, other than twice this season. Once against the Carson Wentz Vikings in week 8, again in week 13 against the Raiders, which, as an offense versus that defense, you would expect to score 30 points. We were talking about Herbert and his offensive line. He's been sacked 45 times this year, which is third most in the league, only behind Geno Smith and Cam Ward, 2 teams essentially eliminated from playoff contention, looking more at the top end of the draft than they are the top end of the playoffs. So it's been up and down, but like you said, Harbaugh is such a good game manager and is able to get the most out of his players that they're kind of sneaking by. But one interesting thing that I was kind of thinking about when you look at Justin Herbert is Justin Herbert's never spoken in the kind of MVP conversation that Josh Allen is, but he's almost as important to his offense for the Chargers that Josh Allen is to the Bills. You look at what he did yesterday with a surgically repaired hand, which he could have kind of shied away quite easily from and been more conservative. But he rushed 10 times for 66 yards, was the Chargers' leading rusher. And the amount of times he escaped through the pocket and wasn't scared to kind of just crumple and protect himself was ridiculous. Like, he's literally putting his body on the line. He's out there with a plate and screws in that hand and still performing to a level that at least can get them over the line if it's not, as impressive to blow out teams.
Yeah, very interesting point. And look, it would be interesting to see to what extent that he can sort of throw and win games by himself in later points of the season. He might have to in the way that we are seeing Josh Allen do. Let's move on to talk about the Philip Rivers situation. We go from one Chargers quarterback, MVP, running for their first title, to somebody who, when the Chargers were good in the late 2000s, and the San Diego Chargers were good, their quarterback, when they managed to win AFC West titles, was Philip Rivers. Now, Philip Rivers hasn't played in the National Football League since the COVID-19 pandemic meant that his last game in Buffalo, New York, was played in front of, I think, no fans. And he's been sitting around on the couch for the last 4 years. I think he's been coaching, in fairness, at a high school level. And the Indianapolis Colts, who don't have Andy Richardson because he's been injured for the year, don't have Daniel Jones because he got injured in Jacksonville on Sunday, and now even Riley Leonard, their backup quarterback, formerly of Notre Dame, he says he's carrying a knee injury here. So they've gone for the guy who played for the Colts at what we thought was the tail end of his career when he was 40, and now he's 45, and to go up against a Texans defense now this week that I heard some people suggest that the idea of putting Philip Rivers on the field against that Texas defense is some form of elder abuse, which it was the classic kind of internet sort of going too far with the joke. But I mean, it makes you think. You're sitting back. I saw somebody like comparing it to, remember in The Longest Yard when Nate Scarborough, Burt Reynolds' character, that says, "You know what? Screw this! I'm putting the helmet on and going out there and showing these kids how to do it." I mean, like, it's such a bizarre place. We were sitting here in this podcast 6 weeks ago talking about looking forward to the Colts and talking about how great their ownership has been, and now in a situation when they've given away 2 first-round picks, they look like they're having a bit of a quarterback crisis, and their season is going down the toilet really, really fast. Like, I just don't know what to make of this ridiculous situation.
When the news first broke that he was going in for a workout, I think there were a lot of eyebrows raised, especially when you say the last time he played a game was the 2020 season in that playoff game against the Bills, where he was actually pretty good in that game. So I went back and had a look at his stats. It was 307 touchdowns. It was a 27-24 loss against the Bills in that playoff game. And that season, he actually put up very good numbers for a 40-year-old: 4,169 yards, 24 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, took the Colts to 11-6. So he was good, but we're talking about 4 years later, and on his 44th birthday, what better way to spend it than doing a workout at the Colts facility, hoping that you can get back into a game that you haven't played. Now, admittedly, he has been training a lot of quarterbacks in the off season, and obviously he's been a high school coach as well. And funny enough, Riley Leonard was one of the quarterbacks that he coached in the off season before the draft this past year. But it's a crazy one. I started looking into oldest players in NFL history, and at 44, he will be the oldest player in the NFL by 3 years over Aaron Rodgers, which we've all laughed about Father Time catching up with Rodgers.
The idea of being 3 whole years older than Aaron Rodgers, like, that's nuts. Without any rhythm of the league in the last 5 seasons of your life, like,
no. He will also he'll become the 14th player to play age 44 and older. So there haven't been many that have done it. There has been a Colt who's done it in Vinatieri, who was, I think, 45 when he retired as a Colt. But the oldest was a Raiders player in 75 called George Blanda, who was 48 when he was quarterback. So he's still got 4 years to play until he does that. But there's something ironic about a man who sat on the couch for 4 years finally getting towards his Hall of Fame eligibility and going, Nah, we'll just extend that a little bit longer.
That's what I mean. He's after resetting the clock. He's gonna have to wait another 5 years before he gets into the Hall of Fame. Like, what's this? Does he just like not want? He doesn't have any room in his wardrobe for the gold jacket. Like, that's another aspect of it. So, like, it is. I know it's obviously people find it very funny that it's typical in sports media when we're like, when you turn 30 and you're like, I have my whole life ahead of me, and then you look at listen like sports media and we're like, this man is the oldest player in the league. It's a miracle he's still alive, and he's 32 years old, and that's just how it's about somebody in their 40s. Of course, like the sports science and everything else, but I want to know the rationale from the Colts' point of view as to why this decision has gone, because there has to be, like, I can't think of names off the top of my head, but there has to be somebody in the realm of undrafted rookie who could be worth a shot. Somebody who's had a time in the league recently, but at least is in is in the age range where you can at least give him a go for one game whilst Ryan Leonard gets back fit. I mean, why? Obviously, there's familiarity there because he was in the building, and maybe people are looking at Joe Flacco, who of course is a Colt last year, and saying, these old guys who have experience in the league, maybe that settles the locker room and it pushes them forward. And it's the presence you need rather than trying to make, some 22-year-old who's never played work. You might as well get somebody who knows what it's like to play in the NFL. But the gap between his last game and this game is so large that I think it just erodes any rationale for going for the veteran head here. I don't know if I'm being too dismissive there.
No, I think it's a fair shout. Obviously, they've got Brett Ripon on the practice squad, who they could have brought in if they needed to a push. And like you said, Riley Leonard's got a knee injury, PCL strain apparently. But I was just having a look at Spot Track, who have a list of all of the sort of free agents who are still available and still out there. There are only 3 players under quarterback that are still available: CJ Beathard, Jeff Driscoll, and Jake Fromm. Now, I probably would take a risk on Philip Rivers over those 3.
When you put it like that, yeah.
I don't know who's on practice squads, because obviously they do have the option of signing a quarterback from a practice squad. I don't know who's out there. Obviously, a lot of teams now are starting to carry 3 quarterbacks on their main roster and not many on the practice squad because of the emergency quarterback rule that's in place. So maybe it is a lot more slim pickings because there are more quarterbacks under contract nowadays. But this is the route they've gone for. It just does feel like an odd one. I mean, did they put the feelers out to Brady?
You might as well. Although the idea of Tom Brady playing for the Colts, I think, would piss off both. I don't think anybody would be happy with that. I mean, obviously, like, Brady is a part owner of the Raiders. He's in the Fox booth wearing one glove. Did you see that, like, during the Bears-Packers game? He was talking, like, so during the Bears-Packers game, this bit wasn't shown on RedZone, I don't think, anyway. But he was there talking about, they were talking about how he keeps his hands warm, and he was talking about whatever. And then he was in the broadcast booth, and he had a glove in his left hand, but not his right. And that's just how we did the broadcast. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So
ready to step in whenever he's needed.
Maybe the Colts saw him with that, and I was like, you know what? Let him live his life there. I don't know. Surely you go for Peyton Manning if you're going to go for anybody else. Although that relationship didn't exactly end fantastically either. So,
nice.
So yeah, it would have been fantastic. Right, we're gonna go for a quick 30-second break, and then when we come back, we'll be talking about the Pro Bowl.
This is your chance to experience the NFL like never before. The Irish NFL show is touching down stateside, and we want you on the team. Explore iconic football towns: Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife, roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it.
Yeah, so really delighted to announce that we will be going on tour in 2026. It's already been a great expression of interest, but if you want to be a part of that, you can register your interest on IrishNFLshow.com/tours. Craig and Ben as well. Ben isn't here for me to give praise in person, but they're doing fantastic work in terms of helping setting that up in the background over the last few days from the team. When I say the team, I feel like it's everybody in the team except me. I haven't been as hands-on with this project as I've been working on other things. So fair play to you guys. That looks fantastic, and I mean, all the stuff there is lining up really, really well. I'm interested though, like if you were hypothetically, right, and I'm not trying to like book you on the trip or anything, but like if you had to pick like a two cities, you were hitting like the Thursday and Sunday. What's your dream combination? You know, like in a dream world where you were the NFL commissioner and you could put in the schedule to suit your needs.
See, I'm lucky enough that I have been to MetLife a few times, and as a Giants fan, so I think that kind of pushes that to one side, and I'd look at the wider NFL because, at the crux of things, the NFL as a whole was what I got into before I became a Giants fan. That came probably 8-9 years later. For me, I think you have to look at the bucket list stuff. So Lambeau is almost a given there, and if you're going to do Lambeau, you might as well tie something in that's nearby. So obviously Chicago makes perfect sense. I do like the idea of like the Deep South tour as well. So maybe something like Atlanta and New Orleans, or New Orleans and maybe Tennessee. In Nashville, I think that those two are quite cool ones. But I think Lambeau just pips it because I think that you've just got the history there, and as somebody who likes the NFL as a generalized thing as well, I don't think you can pass up history like that.
No, I'm actually thinking the same thing. Obviously, like I've been to Boston and New York a lot, and the idea of mixing those two will be a fantastic trip. And obviously, and like you, I'm a Patriots fan, but I was a fan of the league first for a few years before I sort of nailed my colors to the mast. But the idea of going over for like from a stadium point of view, Minnesota, then Green Bay, because you're the best new stadium in the league and the best old stadium in the league in the same go. But then, of course, Chicago is a city I've never been to. And looks fantastic. So I mean that combo does work well. Either way, I mean, who knows what combination it will be by the time the actual planning and everything starts going ahead after the league makes the schedule in May. But that looks like absolutely fantastic thing. If you want to be a part of it, make sure you fill out the form and to at least be in the loop anyway when we start making plans. But let's talk about it's in Lambeau that I want to talk about here because it's funny. You're putting up the you've found the data of how the Pro Bowl voting is going so far. Some really interesting bits to pick into, and we'll talk about the sort of the MVP and the quarterback listens for a second. But I mean, let's give a shout out to an Irish hero, which has been in the league for a couple of years now. And Charlie Smith is getting all the headlines. He did really well for the New Orleans Saints. But Daniel Whelan has been so consistent for the Packers ever since he signed there. He came up through college. He played for the Washington Renegades. The DC Defenders, excuse me. In the XFL. That was where his career path took him into Green Bay. And I think I'm right in saying that at the moment in the Pro Bowl voting, he is fourth in the list. Now, we can all go in there and vote now, guys. So if you're listening, make sure we try to get up third, second, first. But I was even looking at playing against the Bears and the quality of his punting and the hang time he's getting there. Like the commentators always seem so impressed with him. But really interesting one to see that people are seeing that as well. And the Packers punter is getting acclaim from around the league.
Yeah, and it's totally deserved. When you actually look at the Pro Bowl voting this year, it does look when you kind of break it down into the top 10 of each position that there has been maybe a shift away from what the Pro Bowl normally is, which is normally a popularity contest, and it does actually feel like a lot of the names that are appearing in there are names that are performing well at their position, and Daniel Whelan is definitely one of them. I think he's been a consistent punter for a couple of years now for the Packers. He is really starting to get his flowers. He probably has one of those kicks that kick returners hate the most because he seems to be able to get such high hang time on it that they're waiting for it to drop. And you see the amount of muff punts that he's caused this season alone. So the fact that he's in there is fantastic. But yeah, across the board, it does look like it's been much more on merit than it has been on the popularity outside of maybe a couple of Chiefs that are appearing at their position that I don't think should be as high as that.
Well, it's funny you were saying that because you put in the picture of the top 10 overall votes as of Monday, just gone, right? and we'll get to the top half in a second, but 10th at the moment is Travis Kelce. And you were like, there's the Swifties there.
And it's funny, you look at number 8 in Carl Juszczyk. You cannot tell me that every single person who's voting on this goes to fullback and goes, well, I don't know who half of those are, so Carl Juszczyk gets my vote. Like, I'm not taking anything away. Carl Juszczyk is a very, very good football player and a key cog of that 49ers offense, but he probably will always get to the Pro Bowl because of a mixture of name and usage. There aren't many other fullbacks that are being used in the same way he gets used.
Yeah. His girlfriend or his wife is also really good at designing jackets, and that obviously helps with your popularity as well, you know, all these kind of things. So let's talk about at the top of that list, in terms of the overall native voting. From 5 up, we have Jonathan Taylor 5th, you know, somebody who I said should be MVP a few weeks ago. Not looking great now, but I don't know whether that's necessarily him with the team. Micah Parsons, number 4 for the Packers. Number 3, Christian McCaffrey for the Niners. Can't really argue with that. Jackson Smith and Jigba, number 2 for the Seahawks. And another number 1. And really, there's no arguments for this. This is the clear MVP candidate. This is the man who has made the New England Patriots likable. He was up there in the press conference yesterday and talked about how fantastic Josh Allen is. There's no BS around him. It is, of course, Drake May, who, interestingly enough, in this voting has 10,000 more votes than the guy in second place. Which is quite the head of steam behind, you know, somebody who last year wasn't even on the field for most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's really lit it up, I think, from the performances that he's put on the field and obviously the touchdowns that he's now being able to make and taking the Patriots to the record that they're on. I think you can't not go for Drake May at quarterback. And you look at the list of the rest of the top 10 at quarterback. Stafford, number 2, absolutely deserved. Allen, number 3, again deserved. Dak Prescott at 4. The Cowboys have struggled, but he has performed very well this year.
He has.
Patrick Mahomes at 5, and then Daniel Jones at 6. I'm not sure that Caleb Williams or Jordan Love are any worse than those two. Sam Darnold at 9 is a little bit of a surprising one as well.
Patrick Mahomes has missed so many of his passes. There's so many incompletions that I wouldn't rank him above. We can argue about Daniel Jones, but over the course of the season, in fairness, I definitely wouldn't rank him above Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, or Sam Darnold. Jared Goff, okay, maybe he's at that level, but you know, I feel like that's his, maybe his, in the voting, his popularity might be inflating the reality of him on the pitch.
Yeah, and the only other, I looked through the top 10 at all of these, and I think a lot of them are on point. I think a lot of them are, like I said, very, very much on merit. It's nice to see from a Giants perspective that Brian Burns is getting his flowers and being the number 1 edge rusher there. The one that really surprised me is wide receiver. Okay, now Jackson Smith and Jigba at number 1 is fine. George Pickens at 2, okay. I'm not 100% sure on that. Puka Nacua at 3. But the fact that you have a top 10 there and it doesn't have Devontae Adams in it is baffling to me. I think Devontae Adams has been an absolute key part of that Rams offense. You know, is he worse than number 10 CD Lamb, number 9 Romeo Doubs, number 8 Drake London? Drake London hasn't played for like 6 weeks.
That's the one that stuck out to me. Drake London and being in that list, but you know, it doesn't make as much sense as some of the other names. Obviously, we can argue about the sort of, like, I'm glad to see the Taylor Olin, McMillan and Micah Ibuka are getting their flowers, even though Ibuka has missed a couple of games. But when he has played, he's been so good. I agree with that. I feel like that's an unusual one. I'm just trying to look through the forgive me for our YouTube viewers who are just seeing my face sort of like getting dug into the corner. But you honestly you want to see how small the writing is on my screen at the moment. Interesting that on the running side of things, Rico Dowdle has been ranked below Devon Achane. I think the recent run for the Dolphins might be affecting that. From the kicker point of view, Brandon Aubrey. I mean, how can we really argue against how well Brandon Aubrey has been? So there's a lot of really, really interesting stuff. Of course, the league honors won't be taking place until the week of the Super Bowl, but there's a lot of interesting guys. Who do you think is probably in the running for some of the sort of the like the main sort of everyone's talking about MVP being split between May and Stafford, and of course, still the rest of the year to go ahead. Offensive player of the year is probably going to be Jack Smith and Jigba now. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I would say so. Defensive player of the year is easy. It's Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett will break that sack record. He will.
But it's funny you say that, because in the defensive end rankings, people have put Micah Parsons above him. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, Garrett, fair enough, he's above Hutchinson and Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, but like Parsons is being ranked above Myles Garrett, and I think people are forgetting Myles Garrett is a unicorn in that Cleveland team.
Browns team. Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, we're not saying at all that Micah Parsons hasn't played well on the Packers. He's been an absolute revelation for that defense. But Myles Garrett is a one-of-one player, and he will win that defensive player of the year. It just happens. The one thing that's going to be interesting is going to be comeback player of the year, because I thought Daniel Jones was a lock for that. I thought he was a lock, and I think now you're probably looking at Christian McCaffrey will win it. And then again, I think they changed the rules, I think, where you can't just come back from. You have to overcome adversity in some way, and I don't know if you can just be bad one year and then good the next year.
Yeah, I was going to say,
like comeback the injury.
Yeah, I feel like comeback player of the year is, it's becoming an injury thing. But like Daniel Jones has come back from, being a pariah in New York and being benched in Minnesota. So like that's like, to me, that I think that's worthy of criteria. It doesn't have to necessarily be, he was out injured for a year and came back. So interesting one there. So breaking news as we're recording, the NFL has announced it will return to Munich in 2026 and 2028 as part of a multi-year partnership with the city of Munich and FC Bayern. Were you at the game last year in Munich? The Giants?
I was. I did the Giants Panthers game. The game itself was not great from a Giants perspective, but I tell you what, everything around that city was phenomenal. We went out there a few days before. We were looked after very well by the Giants as part of Big Blue UK and Ireland. We were at the Hofbrau House in the party upstairs that they had there, which was for the Giants fans. We went to their Giants house promotional activity that they did for the season ticket holders. That was phenomenal. They had the Super Bowl trophies there. They had loads of different players, but the city itself in Munich is great. It's just the atmosphere is phenomenal. Plenty of places to find drink. There were all kinds of bars around. And obviously, even if you're not just going for the NFL, there's some stunning architecture around Munich as well. I would say the only thing that brought it down slightly was the transport links to the stadium, because the stadium obviously is not in the centre of Munich; it's a little bit further out. But the stadium's phenomenal. Like the Allianz is such a nice stadium to go to. So it doesn't surprise me that they've said they're going back. I did kind of feel like it was going to go back to Munich next year. You never know. The Giants might be one of the teams that make it out there. They do have the rights in Germany.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the idea that Munich is going to host in 2026 and 2028, I think suggests that Berlin is in 2027. Obviously, myself and Ben were in Berlin. Options for drink, not great. But so many times we're walking around and everywhere is closed and full and all that kind of thing. So that was frustrating. But the city itself during the daytime really, really came alive. The Germans know how to put on a really good sort of festival show. But it's funny because we went to an Irish bar there, which was a Detroit Lions bar, and Amon-Ra St. Brown was put up all over. And there are one or two rumors happening that the Detroit Lions might be that team playing in Munich next year, but that's not confirmed. The other things that we know are confirmed is the Rams are going to Melbourne. There will be a game in Rio de Janeiro, and of course there will be the London games, sort of as per usual. I think everything else is still a lot sort of we're still trying to figure out as to the future of NFL games international. We're expecting one in Mexico. We know that the Saints are pretty much locked on to go to Paris next year. We don't know what the story is with Spain or indeed Ireland, and we're still trying to figure out what's happening there. I think even with all those games linked in the collective bargaining agreement, there is still room for games in Spain and Ireland next year, but we just haven't had enough clarity as to whether that'll be the case. But yeah. Anyway, that's enough of the Irish. And let's talk a little bit about the Fighting Irish at the very end of this, because the college football playoffs have been announced. We know that at the moment, the seeds are Indiana number 1, Ohio State number 2, Georgia 3, Texas Tech 4, Oregon 5, Ole Miss 6, Texas A&M 7, Oklahoma 8, Alabama 9, Miami 10. Miami making the playoffs is a big one here. Tulane 11, and James Madison 12. So Tulane and James Madison obviously playing the group of 5 things. They both got their place in. It's funny though, because if you look at the college football rankings, Notre Dame are 11th, but they haven't been given a spot in the college football playoffs, and that has caused a lot of consternation in the world of college football. I've seen Notre Dame decided they're not going to be bowl eligible, which is led to one of the funniest tweets I've seen. Amazing to see that Catholics pull out, not necessarily their normal thing. I let people sit with that joke. But then you go on the Dan Patrick show, and their athletic director is coming on and saying that they had an understanding. I don't know if it's necessarily referred to this year or next year, that if Notre Dame were in the top 12 in the college football rankings, that they would get a spot in the playoffs. That was what the athletic director is saying. There's been a lot of back and forth between the ACC, which is a conference that has links to Notre Dame, but Notre Dame is not in. They have a deal that Notre Dame plays a lot of ACC opponents, but they're not happy with the way the ACC have acted here, because Miami, who didn't play in the ACC championship game, still managed to get into the playoffs here. College football is college football. Trying to figure out a playoff system in college football is going to be crazy. We thought that the expansion from 4 teams to 12 teams would mean the people wouldn't be complaining, because, hey, it's, your Florida States, like what was happening 2 years ago, they would get a chance to get in the playoffs anyway. But no, you're kicking the controversy further down the chain, and this Notre Dame stuff has really, really blown up this week, and is probably, from an NFL point of view, has now put a lot of speculation that maybe Marcus Freeman might just want out of Notre Dame and not see the point in it, and try to look for a job in the NFL. So look, there's a lot happening there. I wonder if there's anything that you saw in the Notre Dame controversy this week.
I think it's really interesting as somebody who's not who kind of flirts with the college game but doesn't kind of get all in on it just yet. It's something that I'm kind of getting more into as the seasons go by. I just think it is interesting that you can have a team like Notre Dame who have consistently performed, and yes, they have lost games this year. They haven't been perfect, but the fact that they didn't make it in and then all of a sudden they just drop out of bowl eligibility. I think they were projected to go against BYU in the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando, so they would have been in one of the more high-profile bowl games there, with the Pop-Tarts Bowl obviously getting its meme-worthy TV time, as it always does.
Love the Pop-Tarts Bowl. In fact, if anybody from Pop-Tarts is listening, please sponsor the show, and we will go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl and make it the biggest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's the greatest thing.
But you look at Notre Dame; they went 10-2. They lost to Miami, which obviously could have played a part in the rankings, and they lost to Texas Tech. Now Texas Tech were 12-1. Both Miami were 10-2. Both very good teams. You look at Miami. Obviously 10-2, they had that win over Notre Dame. They did lose to Louisville and SMU, who were both 8-4. So you can say that the level of competition that they lost against was lower than the level of competition that Notre Dame lost against. The weirdest one for me is the fact that Alabama made it in there at 10-3. They lost their opening game to Florida State, who are obviously my team, 5-7 though they finished. They lost to Oklahoma, who were 10-2. They lost to Georgia, who are 12-1. So they did have 2 higher profile losses in the terms of the games that played, and it was good. But I just think on the merit system, you cannot tell me that Alabama deserved to be in there any more than Notre Dame did.
It's funny because in the AP, so sorry, I got confused earlier when I said that in the college football playoff ranking, which is different to the AP top 25, Alabama are 9, Notre Dame are 11. But in the AP top 25, Notre Dame are 9, Alabama are 11. Miami are 10. They've presented their CV, and I think the fact that they won head-to-head against Notre Dame was seen, okay, you can come in. But the Alabama point is a very interesting one, and this will always lead to a belief that there's SEC bias when it comes to picking teams for coming in. And look, Alabama were beaten quite badly in the SEC championship game. I'm not quite sure like the extent to which they were playing stars and stuff like that, but it all becomes into the web, and whether this is now some sort of ploy to try and get Notre Dame to join a conference, because of course they're still the last great independent organization. So I know there's a lot of Notre Dame fans here, and Kieran Boyle being one of them, who would have a greater skin in the game or greater knowledge here. So I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about all this, so make sure you mess in and let us know. But it's such an interesting thing that, especially when you compare it to the NFL, when everything's so, when your players can leave, when your coaches can leave, who's getting the playoffs and what you have to do to get there. College football, it's just a different kind of fish.
Well, it's the Wild West, isn't it? And I think somebody made a really good point in the terms of the people that they feel most sorry for are the seniors at Notre Dame and the players who are going to declare for the draft, because it does mean that their season ended without any of them actually knowing that it was going to end, and they don't get that send-off that maybe they deserve as players, especially a few of those seniors who have obviously been there for a good few years and have put their bodies on the line for the program, who might potentially not be drafted or see a future in football. So that's who you've got to feel sorry for. But you know, you get it. You get why they've done it. They have the luck, I guess, the luck of the Irish in the fact that they are not in a conference, so they will not be penalised for not attending their bowl game, and they obviously make enough money that they don't need the money from the bowl game either to go into their thing. So it is what it is. It creates an amazing little talking point for us and allows us to delve deeper into the intricacies of the college game. But yeah, very odd one. Very odd one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those playoffs beginning as they begin next week. James Madigan, Oregon will be a good matchup. Oklahoma, Alabama. Will Alabama get their revenge and shut all the doubters up like you, Craig? Tulane, Ole Miss. I'm actually really hoping Tulane win that one. I just think it'd be such an amazing storyline, because I think both of those guys have lost their coaches. Tulane's coach has gone to Florida, and Ole Miss coach has gone to LSU. And then Miami, Texas A&M will be an interesting one as well. That's it for this week's edition of the AV Club. When we convene next week, we'll be reviewing one of the more intriguing yet not exciting yet important Monday Night Football matchups between the Dolphins and the Steelers. And I genuinely do not know what to expect from that match. I actually, especially it's just talk about two teams who you can't read. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Steelers yet again are closing in on that 8-9, 9-8 mediocrity of just being steady.
That sweet 9-8 record for Mike Tomlin. That's all he wants, even though he was definitely aided by a few very, very shady calls that went against the Ravens on Sunday. But that's enough about that. Right, I think that's it for this week's edition of the AV Club. Apologies for everybody who would normally listen to us on a Wednesday morning for coming late in your feeds. I hope this has made up for it. And for now, Craig, thank you.
Thank you.
And to all of you who are listening, thank you.